Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is the business of sports.
Sports are the greatest unscripted show on earth.
The next generation of players really grew up with tech and believe in tech.
Your face is your ticket. Your face is your wallet. Your face is your access to a club.
These are such iconic and important buildings for businesses, for fans.
COVID was one of the best things that ever happened to golf.
The NFL is a bulletproof business.
Racing's unique because there is absolutely no reason why we can't compete with the guys.
Come on, is pro pickleball real? Are people really going to tune into this?
If you're playing Moneyball with a huge bag of money, you're going to be really, really good.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr.
And I'm Damian Sassower.
Vanessa Perdomo will join us later in the show.
Coming up, we'll check in on the sports betting space with BetMGM CEO Adam Greenblatt.
And we'll hear from Cain co-founder and CEO Jonathan Goldstein about his firm's stakes in the sports world. All that and more is on the way on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, but we start in the college ranks. The big headline this past week was Lane Kiffin's controversial move from Ole Miss to LSU.
It was a big headline, Michael Barr, but not as big as five-star quarterback Jared Curtis from Nashville Christian flipping from Georgia to my hometown Vandy Commodores. Let's go, anchor down.
See, man, now you've drooled on the scripts and everything, man. It's like Randall Williams, our very own Bloomberg Business of Sports reporter, man, is also here to join us. You got to join in on the chat, man.
None of what Lane Kiffin has done over the course of his career has surprised me. He's an agent of chaos in the chaotic world of college sports. And I think everybody wants to chastise him for these different things, but when athletes can up and leave and enter the transfer portal and be paid, and coaches have long been able to switch jobs or be fired with payouts, I think this is just the world we live in, and everybody needs to get over it.
More now on the latest in the college ranks. We welcome Ben Portnoy, college sports reporter at the Sports Business Journal. Ben, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
So let's get into it. I mean, look, talk to us a little bit about the drama that's going on in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, Lane Kiffin is someone that drama follows no matter where he is. It's whether it's good, bad, and different, right? And I remember talking to some folks and some friends, right when Lane got hired at Ole Miss, and the conversation was basically, and I said it then, was, this is basically going to go one of two ways. It's going to go up in smoke in 4 years because it doesn't work, or it's going to go up in smoke in 4 years because Lane leaves and does so well and he goes somewhere else and the exit's going to be, fiery, right? And here we are. And so I think, look, the way that it's worked, right, is that, Lane is leaving Ole Miss in the middle of a playoff run to go to LSU, a place that, he thinks he can go win a national championship, essentially. I think it's an interesting dynamic at play when you have these coaching searches that turn into these high profile conversations and how they fit into the media narrative.
Ben, nice to talk to you. My question for you is pretty simple. There's a lot of people out there who say, that he is a victim of the schedule of college football. The transfer portal and these coaches' hirings and firings all play into this decision. I wonder how much you factored that into this, while also Lane being a simply chaotic character in the business of college sports.
Look, at a very base level, right, Lane is chaotic. And I think we can all agree on that and the ways that he's gone out. We talked about the Raiders, right? We talked about Ole Miss as the most recent one, that doesn't even mention, him being fired on the tarmac at USC and everything, right? And so there's that. We can set a baseline there. But I think that, Nick Saban was on talking about the calendar a little bit. Kirk Herbstreit was talking about that Lane should be allowed to coach through the playoff and that this is a problem with the calendar and all of these things, right? And I think that, frankly, that argument is completely disingenuous. I think that, in my view, that, you have a college sports calendar that operates on the university system, right? So, college sports leaders might be ticked off about how the calendar operates, but short of going and changing the semester programs at every school in America, good luck fixing that, because that's just how this works, right? These are tethered to institutions of higher education. And so I think that, look, yes, is the timing not ideal? Absolutely, right? This is not a great situation that Lane is having to leave a team in the middle of a playoff, but there's a pretty simple solution to all of this, and that's that he would not take the LSU job and he would coach Ole Miss. So I think that this is sort of a thing that has come up a lot, but I think that, yes, the calendar is broken. It's got its issues. Like there is no question that like the football calendar and the academic calendar are sort of at odds, so to speak. But I think to say that this is not essentially entirely a out of Lane Kiffin's doing, I think is kind of disingenuous, generally speaking.
But then, Ben, before we dig into five-star quarterback Jared Curtis flipping to Vandy, let's talk about Sports Business Journal. I mean, you've just partnered with Bloomberg through our new subscription bundle. It gives our audience access to both Bloomberg's business reporting and SBJ's industry-leading sports coverage. And if you're listening, you probably have already guessed, college football, I mean, the season's there. The season's nearly over, and there's going to be some talk after the playoffs as to what it looks like for the 26-27 campaign. I know you've written on this extensively. You know, SEC Commissioner Sankey prefers this 5+11 format. The Big Ten prefers something different. Talk to us a little bit about what you think comes next as we get through this season and look to next.
Yeah, how much time you guys got? I think that the college football playoff is going to continue to be a conversation, and there's been a conversation about whether to expand this thing beyond 12 teams or go to 16, or Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti has pushed the idea of as many as 24 teams. That conversation remains ongoing. Like the people I've talked to, that remains ongoing. Those four commissioners from the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 10 are essentially the ones in charge of that, but ultimately it's going to be Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti who have to agree on that, given the weighted voting structure of how that works. There, in theory, was a deadline of early December to have a decision on what they would do for 26-27. Naturally, they blew past that deadline and have moved the deadline to about 4 days after the national championship in January. So whether anything gets done between now and then, I will say I have my doubts. I've talked to some folks involved in some of these conversations, and there's not exactly optimism, I would say, that anything's going to get done and that anything would change. But I would say there's some important caveats with this. So, as it exists right now, the 12-team format, you're in kind of a tight window as far as where you can put these games, obviously. You're going head-to-head with the NFL. That's a conversation with first-round games. If you were to expand to, let's play it just 16 teams, right? Like, the understanding is there's a clause in the ESPN deal that would trigger a renegotiation, given that you're adding essentially a couple extra games. If it expands to, I believe, 14, which had been kicked around a little bit, it wouldn't trigger that clause. So that's an interesting piece of this of ESPN's already paying billions of dollars for this property. Do they really want to spend more on it? Realistically, probably not, right? But what are they getting out of that as well is an interesting piece of this as well. So again, I think these conversations remain ongoing. It's still a question of is 12 teams right? Is 16 teams right? Is 24 teams right? Where you could build this out, and the concept that's, as it's been explained to me, would be, you have 24 teams in the playoff, but instead of where you have traditional championship weekend games, right, the conference championship games that we're heading into, and all of that toward the end of the postseason, that instead you would have essentially play-in games, and you would have, high-level conference matchups in that last week of the season. And so I think that becomes an interesting conversation piece to all of that. And how do you reimagine championship weekend? I think that's going to happen regardless. But I do think that it's definitely tethered to what happens with the CFP as well.
Well, Michael Barr at 14 teams, that means Vandy's a shoo-in. If we had 14 teams, Vandy's going to the college football playoffs right now. Not everyone, like our friend Ben Portnoy, went to Indiana and has Mendoza at quarterback and number 2 team ranked in the nation, right?
That's what.
Listen, guys, I was going to say, I watched a lot of really bad football in my 4 years in Indiana. This is pretty crazy.
I wonder how you view the NCAA as an organization today. If you look 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were responsible for suspending coaches and really enforcing the rules. But now in a lot of my group chats, everyone's like, the NCAA needs to do something, when not long ago they were being villainized for saying, oh, they're not paying athletes, and deservedly so. But nowadays, it seems like this is a free market economy. And as everyone, you've heard this term just as much as I have. It's the wild, wild west, and the NCAA doesn't really have the governance that it used to. Talk to me about the role that they play in college sports today, because it doesn't really seem like we're hearing as much of the power shift that they had years ago.
Yeah, look, I think right now, the way that college sports is set up, I think the Power Four conferences ultimately have sort of the absolute power, quote unquote, over the ecosystem and what shape it's going to take, generally speaking. And most of that driven through football. As it relates to the NCAA, I think, look, like you've taken this entity that for such a long time was involved in investigations and, punishing coaches and all of those things. And they're still sort of in that game a little bit as it relates to like academics. You saw them hand down a pretty significant penalties to Michigan over the sign stealing scandal. Both of those things are sort of independent of limiting player payments and things like that. It's a little bit of a different scope. But I do think there's an interesting conversation of like, what is the NCAA's role moving forward and what do they look like? Certainly they're in charge of running championships for a lot of these sports. That's a really important thing, right? Like someone needs to run the Division I cross country championship, right? And that's not a knock on cross country, just pick a sport, right? But I think there's a lot of folks that would say, and conversations I've had with people who talk about whether there needs to be someone else running the men's and women's basketball tournaments, for example, which are run by the NCAA. There's some criticism of like, hey, we could run these better, or, we could make more money off of these if we ran them a different way, or whatever that might be. So I think that you're seeing the NCAA shift from what was once sort of, judge, jury, executioner to something that's a little more managerial is probably overstating it. But I think that, they're trying to figure out what that role is. And I think you've seen, again, like the Power Four has sort of their tentacles on a lot of this. The NCAA changed their governance structure entirely to basically give those leagues weighted voting on a bunch of their committees up and down, and to slim things out and essentially a way to simplify things, but also that would grant them more power to operate more freely within the ecosystem. So I think that it's a group that's in flux. I think that, certainly like the staff at the NCAA headquarters in Indianapolis is thinner than it has been previously. And I think there's a lot of folks there that are wondering like, hey, what does this look like moving forward? And I think it's a little bit of a moving target. But I think that as this moves to a more professionalized model, like there needs to be someone in the center of this running things as sort of a central hub. But I don't know that the NCAA actually becomes that, right? Especially as it relates to college football, which is its own entity entirely. But basketball becomes kind of the inflection point for a lot of that.
Ben Portnoy, college sports reporter, Sports Business Journal. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This was great. Really appreciate it.
And remember, for our audience, Sports Business Journal has just partnered with Bloomberg through our new subscription bundle, which gives readers access to both Bloomberg's business reporting and SBJ's industry-leading sports coverage.
Up next, we turn to the gaming industry with BetMGM CEO Adam Greenblatt. For Damian Sassower, I'm Michael Barr. You are listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr.
I'm Damian Sassower.
And I'm Vanessa Perdomo.
Prediction markets like Kalshi and Polymarket are making a big push into sports, and some new startups are joining the mix too.
To take us through the latest in the sports betting space and whether prediction markets could present a real challenge to the traditional gaming platforms is friend of the show, BetMGM CEO Adam Greenblatt. Adam, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always great to be here.
And joining us for the conversation is another friend of the show, Bloomberg News global sports reporter, Ira Boudway.
We're talking the chief executive officer of BetMGM. And okay, let's get the big elephant out of the room in the first place. A lot of these scandals that have come down here with the latest in baseball with Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, and then their NBA scandals, that's going on as well. Has it hurt BetMGM?
I really appreciate you starting light, Michael. Look, the answer is these kind of scandals are bad for sport, or bad for the industry. It's bad for everybody involved, and our focus at BetMGM is responsible gambling and sports integrity. And I feel like we need to stay focused on highlighting the bad actors And the legal regulated model for sports betting now today does that. So the legal market, basically, it brings transparency, and it's the only way to protect players and to make sure that games are fair. And so, what do? BetMGM helps to bring integrity to sports games. How? By partnering with leagues, with regulators, and with data providers to bring transparency, to detect suspicious activity, and to promote responsible gambling. So we don't want to see it. It's bad for everybody involved. But on the positive side, has it impacted BetMGM negatively? Are bettors still showing up? And the answer is bettors are still showing up. We've had last week, in fact, was one of our best weeks in the history of BetMGM.
Adam, while we're on this subject of that, and obviously as we're looking at how those things can be, regulated a little bit more, can you tell us about how prop bets are going to be, is there more restrictions going forward, and how sports books can, kind of do more on that side in order to stop some of these problems from happening?
Yeah, look, the problems that are happening are as a result of the involvement of bad actors. Okay? The role of the legal sports betting market is to bring transparency to these types of involvements. And my core concern is, number one, players like player props and these kind of milestone markets. For example, we've seen growth in our milestone markets for players to achieve certain milestones in games, points, rebounds, assists, in the NBA as an example. Now, the concern I have is to the extent that the legal market says they're not allowed, and players like it, where do players go? Players go to the illegal offshore markets. The bad actors aren't going to disappear. What we want is to bring transparency to all of the activity, so that the bad actors can be exposed and we can protect games, we can protect players.
It's interesting, though, the leagues have convinced the major books, I believe including yours, to add some new, very narrow targeted restrictions around single pitch bets and under bets on the lowest paid NBA players. You see those as useful ways to kind of curtail, match fixing and manipulation? Who are our partners? The leagues and our regulators. And so as good actors, if you like, we will comply with wherever we get to. But to your specific question, will these be effective? Certainly in the regulated market, they will be effective. Unfortunately, alongside that, as I've said, there is the existence of the illegal market where the risk remains.
You guys are setting up a mobile site in Missouri. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, this is the news of the week. So we're very proud. We're very proud to bring our award-winning sportsbook to the state of Missouri and basically expand our legal regulated sports betting offering. Missouri represents our 30th market, so this is an elegant milestone for BetMGM. We now reach 50% of the U.S. population with our sports and gaming products, and in Missouri specifically, we have our mobile offering alongside our brand new, and looks great, BetMGM Sportsbook at the Century Casino and Hotel Cape Girardeau.
Yeah, I'm really interested in how you guys, when you're activating in these new spaces and how that's all playing into it, especially as we look at prediction markets and how they're coming into play in these spaces where sports betting is illegal. Can you tell me about that when you're talking to states where in legislation where they haven't passed sports betting yet, and now that there's prediction markets in that space kind of competing already?
Yeah, look, well, we see the legal regulated sports betting framework as the best for bringing the product to sports bettors in a state. We don't see prediction markets as meaningful long-term threats to our business, to BetMGM. A few reasons for that.
look, the majority of our revenue comes from iGaming. That's the first point. And that second is because we only operate in fully regulated states where these platforms haven't gained meaningful share, and we don't expect them to, we feel pretty good about where we are. And I'll just take one moment. For the reason we feel good about our role or the dominance of our offering in legal states is because from a consumer's perspective, our offering and value proposition is just better. We have more range, more betting range. It's easier for a player to bet what you want to bet at the size you want to bet and in the combination of markets of your choosing. It's just a better total experience. And by the way, being a customer of BetMGM is more rewarding than participating in the prediction markets. Now, your point is important, which is, well, what happens in the states which aren't yet legal? Well, we're working hard to ensure that legalized sports betting expands wherever possible, and we see the launch in Missouri as a further positive step in that direction.
Some of your competitors seem to be looking at a model maybe of trying to do both, where they're in some states where they have licenses, they operate as regulated sports books, and in states where there is no online sports betting, they operate as prediction markets. Did you give that any thought, and why wouldn't you want to try sort of that dual approach?
Yeah, look, we are monitoring this very closely, and by definition, therefore, we have given this extensive thought. And look, there are developments every day. Every day, new information to consider and recheck our previous analysis. And the guiding principle is this: legality and our relationships with state regulators are key for us. And our state regulators have been clear on their interpretation of both current law and their regulation. And, recent rulings like the Nevada classifying Kalshi's sports events contracts as gambling show that regulators are clear on their interpretation of the rules and the law. And frankly, so the legal system is confirming that position. And so, our focus remains on delivering best-in-class experience in regulated markets. So we'll continue to monitor every day. And so, but at this point, participation is not an option for us.
It's interesting. It sounds like you don't anticipate that these markets will necessarily persist in the current form, offering sports contracts over, as the legal process plays out. You think they may not be able to operate as they are now?
Well, our analysis, which is shared by mid-30s attorneys general and consistently by our regulators, is that the prediction markets in sports prediction contracts are frankly illegal sports betting. And so, until that changes, I don't anticipate that will change. With progressive rulings, as the one in Nevada has set a precedent for, we have more of those. I think we'll see that actually the scope of prediction markets should narrow, and sports should return to being the domain of the states and tribes.
Adam, one of the things I want to talk about before you go is the trends on women's sports and betting in that space and how that's grown. And I'm curious, from your seat, do you see it almost as this, now we're in a space where it's WNBA off season, it's the women's soccer off season, but you can, there's other sports like ice hockey, volleyball, softball. In these emerging women's sports, do you see it as almost like a chicken and the egg where they need to become more popular before they're, given a bigger platform on your site? Or if you make them more available for bettors, will that help grow the sport, do you think?
That's a really interesting question. One of the reasons why we've seen such explosive growth in interest in women's sports is because of the quality of quality of players and the star appeal. We've had really emergent women athletes that capture imaginations of fans. And it's that fandom that drives engagement with our product. We can spin up markets, we can make available markets, events and markets really pretty simply, quickly. But we do want to follow where the demand is. And at the thing that drives demand is the core of the thing that drives demand is interest in the sport.
Adam, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Our thanks to BetMGM CEO Adam Greenblatt.
Up next, we talk to the co-founder and CEO of Cain, an alternative asset manager specializing in real estate that's seeing big opportunities in the world of sports. For Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. You are listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
Missed the top headlines on Bloomberg Radio? Get the latest news when you want it, updated continuously throughout the day with Bloomberg News Now. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app and anywhere you get your podcasts.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr.
I'm Damian Sassower.
And I'm Vanessa Perdomo.
Cain is an alternative asset manager specializing in real estate that's seeing big opportunities in sports.
That's right, Michael Barr. Cain has over $1 billion invested in sports, including stakes in Chelsea FC, the Dodgers, the Lakers. I mean, I think they do stuff in cricket. I mean, certainly they're one of the largest commercial real estate players on the planet. I think we have a lot to talk about.
Joining us to talk about the firm and its sports interests is co-founder and CEO Jonathan Goldstein. Jonathan, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thanks a lot. Great to see you. What a great smile to be greeted with.
Well, Jonathan, let's give our audience a little bit of color here. I mean, Cain is one of the world's most venerable global real estate investment, but more development companies, right? But, you're also a director for Chelsea, right? Premier League. And you also have some other sports and media interests. I'd love to hear about that. You have a $1.2 billion portfolio, which has a lot of other stuff. Swingers, St. James. Talk to us about that sports portfolio. What are your eyes on?
When I started the business with Todd Bowley, and Todd's obviously, well known to most people as a global leader in sports, both with the Dodgers, the Lakers, Chelsea, etc., etc. So obviously, plays to my interest in sports when we were in business together. And we spent some time in the, from when we, joined up in business from 2014 onwards, looking at the Premier League. And that resulted in 2022 with the consortium that Todd led to buy Chelsea Football Club, along with Clearlake. And, Todd is the chair. And, I think the success of the last 12 months has really begun to show the fruits of the strategy that the team there has put together, and all credit to them for everything they've done, and ending up, of course, in the US by winning the Club World Cup back in July at the stadium, Met Stadium, which was a great experience for everybody, along with President Trump, of course. And, that's led to other interests in sport that we have, enjoyed. I mean, Swingers is a great business. It's down in New York, down in the Nomad region here, yep. And as well as in Vegas and in the UK, and we're about to open in Boston. And, whilst it's not obviously mainline sports in the same way, it plays to the same issues of experiential and playing to people's interests and enjoyment of life, and providing a multifaceted experience with carnival and fun fairs in the experience as well, which is great. And the thing that I think we're most proud of and most excited about, Todd and I, would be the St. James. Yes. We built this facility outside of DC in Springfield, Virginia. And it's an extraordinary facility run by two great guys, Kendrick Ashton and Craig Dixon. Over 400,000 square feet of sports, just pure sports. Right. Everywhere you look is a different sport. From hockey to a field house to basketball to gymnastics to golf simulator to an aquatic center, etc., etc., etc. And Kendrick and Craig have led that with great distinction over time. And what we're seeing is that there is a huge desire in the marketplace for this fusion of performance, of wellness, of health, of experiences.
Well, Jonathan, isn't that really what Cain's done, not just in sports, but really in real estate as well? I mean, I'm looking at the various different projects that your firm is, from the Delano Hotel to, One Beverly Hills to this new Raffles in Boston. I mean, it's all about, building brands around experiences.
Correct.
And, that seems to be something, Class A, from Class A office to hospitality, that you and the folks at Cain are really pride yourself at. So give us a little bit of what you're sniffing. I mean, you're involved with the One Beverly Hills in LA. Talk to us about the ramp up for the Olympics, the development you're seeing going on there, especially on the heels of the wildfires. I mean, what's going on the ground there?
Look, we're very proud of what we're doing in Beverly Hills. It's market leading. There's nothing like it.
Right.
And I think you're right in picking up the fact that we've approached the marketplace from a slightly different perspective, in that we've approached it simultaneously from the asset level, but also from the brand level. So we were the first investors in Oman. We were followed by PIF from Saudi Arabia, and then a group from Abu Dhabi, together with obviously the chairman and controlling shareholder Vlad Doronin. And we've also done the same with the Delano. We haven't just said we want to own the real estate in Miami Beach. We own 1/3 of the brand. And what that does is you have to get inside the experience of the customer, and you have to understand what you're delivering to that customer as if it were you. Please, don't buy a hotel that you haven't gone and stayed in. You haven't lived in yourself, right? And I think it comes back to a philosophy that I've had since I was a kid. You've not lived your life until you've walked in the shoes of the other man. And I think that's the way we've approached our brands, that's the way we've approached our hotels, as the user, understanding what people want from their real estate, understanding the experience that they would want, which fundamentally is the experience that we would want for us and our families and our friends. And I think what we're doing in LA is exactly that.
Well, you've got world-class sports facilities in more than 30 sports. I mean, we're talking like some big-time facilities, which leads me to not only can you use that for sports, but a lot of the facilities for like concerts and things like that, I'm sure that has been used as well for
Correct.
You guys.
That's right. Now, look, I think that when you look at the facilities today around the world that are being built, they have to be multi-purpose. Yeah. They have to be multifaceted, because it's great to have the anchor if you're an NFL stadium with an NFL team. But if you look at SoFi and the way that SoFi is innovated so many times a year, and Jason Gannon, who helped develop that for Stan Kroenke, is now the president of Chelsea, and he's a great guy in helping build the vision for next vision of Stamford Bridge in Chelsea. But I think it's really important to understand that we're in the entertainment business, and we're not just in the entertainment business when the teams play, but we're obviously in the entertainment business 365 days a year.
Well, Jonathan, now you're speaking our language, right? Because we know all about the mixed use around stadiums and arenas. We've had plenty of guests that are involved in that space. And, from Baltimore to D.C. to Buffalo to New York City, Willets Point's Queens, right? I mean, talk to us about New York City. I mean, with the casino licenses that are coming out and what Cain and what you are most focused on. I mean, I got to imagine this is just a huge opportunity for you.
Look, we haven't got involved in the casino world. That's not been our world, okay? What we are believers in is New York City, okay? And so we've just acquired the Dominic Hotel down in, on the edge of Soho, on the edge of Spring Street, the old Trump Soho, which became the Dominic. We've acquired that, and we're going to rebrand it over the next 18 months to Delano Soho, keeping that theme of what we're doing of the brand and the user very much in our minds. So, New York City has a wonderful array of experiences for people to enjoy. And we're seeing great growth in that. We're just actually finishing an office block between 6th and 7th, which is also doing very, very well. And I think there's a huge future here, and we continually and will continue to invest in New York City.
Well, let's move on to something that's near and dear to Michael Barr's heart, cricket. Right? Michael Barr, you love cricket. And the Trent Rockets, I mean, and more importantly, the 100. Talk to us about the 100 and your involvement there, the short format cricket that, is kind of taking the world by storm, and obviously, Michael Barr, in sports gambling, cricket is
Massive.
Real. It's nice stuff, right?
There's gambling going on in here. I'm shocked.
So if you take a step back, okay, so Americans have a view of cricket whereby you play for 5 days, no one knows what goes on, and then there might not be a result at the end of the game.
What's a wicket?
Right? And what does it all mean, and what are all these acronyms, LBW and all this stuff, right? It stands for leg before wicket. And what has happened over the course of the last 15 years is that, led by the Indian Premier League, the world of short-form cricket has transformed itself.
Yeah.
And when you look on a broadcast basis, the IPL is second only to the NFL in broadcasting rights value per game.
Per game, really?
Yeah. Per game.
Interesting.
It's an 8-week tournament, and it leads the way behind the NFL, which obviously is the global leader. And what we've seen is you've seen huge value uptick in the value of the franchises out in India. And 5 years ago, the English Cricket Board started up their own competition called the 100, which is not the same as the Indian Premier League, which is 120 deliveries. 100, by its definition, is 100 deliveries. And speaking to my American audience, I would just equate it to say, let's assume you have a baseball game where each side gets 100 pitches. And your job is to score as many runs off that 100 pitches as you can.
That's a hell of an idea. I like that.
And
man.
that is what the 100 is. Yeah. You have 100 deliveries. That's all. Wow. Each side. So the game is over in 2.5 hours. It's very simple. Yeah. Who scores the most runs off the 100 pitches?
Well, Jonathan and Michael Barr, for our audience, let's just put some numbers around this, right? If you look at average annual value, media rights, I'm talking here, the NFL, it's the NFL's world and we're all just living in it. It's $12.4 billion a year. Yeah. But IPL, I had no idea. I'm just looking right now. Top 10, $1.2 billion a year average annual value. That puts it right in line with Serie A, Bundesliga, the NHL. So I had no idea.
And you have to look at it on a per game basis. And remember, the Premier League.
This is annual, right? It's not a per game basis.
The Premier League has 38 games.
Yeah.
The Indian Premier League, the tournament stage, I think, has 14 games.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, that's an unbelievable opportunity. Unbelievable. Right, Michael Barr?
Yeah. I tell you, as I think about it, just when you put it in that perspective about cricket to baseball, that's a hell of an idea in baseball. Tell you one thing, you wouldn't have pitchers being accused of wasting pitches by throwing something in the ground in baseball because everyone counts. That's wow.
That's why Raffles calls Jonathan when they want to build a hotel in Boston.
But look, I think the whole thing about sport is creating those experiences that are just not replicable.
Yeah.
And when you talk about broadcast rights, I don't think anything detracts from the live experience of being in these stadiums when magical things happen. And we all live our lives and we've all got our highest moments. I actually couldn't make the 7th game of the World Series, but I can imagine watching Rojas coming up at the top of the 9th and hitting that home run. And what it also talks about, there are so many life lessons to learn from sports. What does it tell you? Every member of the team is important. Yeah, you've got your amazing, goats in Ohtani.
Yeah.
But your number 9 batter, he can make a difference.
Absolutely.
And don't you forget, and I think that's a great life lesson for all of us, that we're all on a team and we are only as strong as the weakest part of our team.
Jonathan, oh my goodness. What a pleasure to talk with you, sir, on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Our thanks to Jonathan Goldstein for joining us. He is the co-founder and CEO of Cain International.
What? And that does it for this edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports. Where'd the time go? For my colleagues Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr.
Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big money in the world of sports. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms.
You are listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.